You're watching the Tesla live with your host, Mark Hodland.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tesla Life number 347, the 21st of February, 2024. How is everybody out there in internet land doing today? I hope you're well. With us as regular, we have Mr. Casey Green joining us from the mid-Atlantic states. How are you today, sir?
Doing okay. I found out that this scanner that you can now see behind me on the wooden desk there, they went out of business at the end of last year. I had a scan fail in January. I was like, I'll get to this later. And I tried to scan today, and it's like, they're missing. I'm like, well, I didn't ask you to scan to the cloud. I asked you to scan to my local server behind the wall there. Turns out if you're using OCR, it tries to use their servers, which are gone.
Oh, yep. That's not going to work well then, is it?
Yeah, I turned off that switch and it went back to normal. So
okay.
Now I just got to hope I never need parts.
The fingers crossed.
Yep.
Also joining us, we have Mr. Patrick Connor from the West Coast. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. Hello, Tesla Nation. I always love this day of the week. This is a highlight of my week. This is fun hanging out with you guys and talking about Tesla and our future free from fossil fuels.
Got it in early. That's got to be the earliest he's ever gotten that line in. That has to be the earliest. If someone's keeping track, definitely. That is what has happened there. Well, we got a ton of news this week as per usual. So let's get right into it. This is the story that's been hitting the interwebs like there's no tomorrow. And that, of course, is Rust. What is happening?
Language? Right. Yeah. Taking over the data centers everywhere.
No, and it's not the troubled film that Alec Baldwin was in. This is something that has been popping up recently with Cybertruck owners starting to see little bits of rust on the exterior of their trucks. And
well, you know they say, Mark, it's not stain free, it's stainless.
it's not, yeah, exactly. So this is something that has concerned many people. Obviously, you spend $100,000 on a vehicle. You don't want to see rust on the exterior, especially on a stainless steel finish. And it's gotten some people really nervous about what's going on. But we're here to tell you that there's no need to be too nervous about this problem. This is less of a rust problem and more of a cleaning problem because this rust is actually being attached to the vehicle because of little flecks of metal flying through the air and then attaching itself to the exterior porous surface of the Cybertruck. We've got, it seems, an exterior that is prone to showing these flecks of metal. And this metal comes from, get this, they call it rail dust. It's also can be attributed to brake dust from other vehicles as well. And what happens is when rail dust or brake dust is expelled from another vehicle for the use of the rails or the use of the brakes themselves, these little miniature particles of metal actually float in the air, and sometimes they land on vehicles. And if they happen to land on a vehicle that it stays, then what happens is this little fleck of metal ultimately rusts, being in contact with the air and the moisture of the environment, and it starts to rust. And when you look at the vehicle, it appears that your exterior is actually rusting, when in truth, it's just this little fleck of metal that's rusting, extremely small. And if you take a cleaning agent and rub the affected surface, the rust will come off with the metal itself. And we're talking very thin metal. We're not talking about something that, you know, a magnet can stick to. This is extremely thin and light metal, just flecks of metal that are starting to show up on the Cybertruck. And I know this for a fact because even in my neck of the woods, my daughter has a white car. And white car, to this point, I thought was the most susceptible to being viewed for these little flecks of rust that eventually will attach itself to the car. And if you don't wash the car regularly, you start to see these little brown spots on the white paint. And it's nothing to do with their car. It's this contaminant that's floating around in the air with all of us at all times. And it's not just rail dust. It's also from brakes. It's also from other things, because in my area, not a lot of rail traffic. But yet her car has this because, in my opinion, she doesn't clean the car enough. And dad being upset with the daughter. But at some point, if you do not clean it, it takes every day that goes by that it's on there and rusting, the harder it is to clean off. So you end up with a white car, you basically have to clay bar it to get it off, because after a while, if it's sitting there and continuing to spread out a little bit on the flakes of metal that's there, it just becomes a brown spot. And it appears that on the Cybertruck, we're experiencing the same thing. This stainless steel finish is susceptible to seeing this rust. And of course, people were overreacting at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, the actual exterior of the vehicle is rusting in little spots. And if it's rusting this quickly, I can imagine what my entire door panel is going to look like in a year. But that is not the case.
So the lead engineer on Cybertruck jumped in and explained that that while it is the same as on every car, especially as Mark mentioned on the white cars, so apparently stainless steel, black and white are going to show you the most imperfections and dirt. But because of the material that the Cybertruck is comprised of, this rusting process will happen faster to the contaminants. So if you have two cars that run side by side, and one's white and one is Cybertruck, and they both get the contaminants attached, the Cybertruck will show them faster than the white car.
The other issue with the Cybertruck is that the actual material, since it's not coated in paint, the stainless steel exterior is a little bit more porous. There's more holes in it. So the contaminant flecks can get attached easier and can kind of wedge themselves into little grooves or, you know, possible imperfections of the steel that it just kind of, you can't see this with your eye, but this porous material, it allows contaminants to adhere to it even easier than paint. So this could be an issue. And it's funny, I do not recall this being an issue or someone mentioning it's an issue with the DeLorean. But if it was stainless steel as well, I would imagine that is an issue, or had been an issue.
I'm wondering if people were more used to it back then, because the paints and coatings back then were not that great compared to what we have today, which made it to the point where people might have forgotten about it. Similarly, we had a discussion about pre-existing conditions. Totally off topic, but there's now been a whole generation who grew up without having to deal with such a concept. And it could be similar with the qualities of paints that we have today.
Maybe, yeah.
And so the same engineer said barkeep's friend or barman's friend is the solution to just get that on there, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, I wonder if, Mark, you mentioned how the surface of the Cybertruck is more likely to, these things are more likely to adhere or attach to it. If you could do a ceramic coating or something on your Cybertruck to make it slicker surface, and it wouldn't eliminate this, but if it makes, you get half the number of them or something, that might be helpful.
Yeah, anything like maybe a wax or something that would make the surface more smooth.
Right.
It certainly works with paint. So I would imagine. Well, again, we're not experts on the coating. Certainly read the manual as to what components you can attach to it. But I know in a number of the YouTubes where people were speaking about this issue and trying to show the issue, they were using wide variety of things to clean the rust off, from Windex to bar. There was a tool that bars use for their chromed, fixtures in the bar. The stools themselves, the tap rail on the side of the bar, all these things they were using to clean. And to be honest, they all seem to work. It's just that certain ones worked better. But that Patrick is a great suggestion. I would look into that as to what coatings you could use to possibly smooth the surface out a little bit. And avoid some of those attachments, even if it's some, not all.
Yeah, one thing I will say not to do: don't get steel wool or like an SOS pad, and you think you can wipe it off with that, because those things are steel and they will embed into the surface and make the problem worse. Which
the green that's already there.
Yes, yeah. So it's not a good idea.
Good
And that's from the DeLorean days. That was on the DeLorean forum saying, "Do not use steel wool on your DeLorean."
They were saying that to buff the exterior, even like a Scotch-Brite pad, that is not the steel one. It's the green one, the one that is.
The engineers of the blue one.
Okay.
Blue one. Yeah.
Is that one a little softer?
So it's a non-scratch. So
yeah.
So that's another way that you can remove the rust, as well as other scuffs in the vehicle. But again, check your manual and check the user forums for what other people are experiencing, because this is a fairly new issue. No one was noticing this, about 4 weeks ago. But now that a number of trucks are out there and more coming every day, and of course, some people aren't cleaning the trucks because it's a truck. A lot of people believe that this is rough and tough, tumble truck. This is how we treat trucks. So this is something that could be maybe something that Tesla may address something a little bit differently in the future. Maybe a coating will be added later on. Again, I'm guessing here. I don't know this for sure. But depending on how bad these little flecks of pollution stick to the vehicle, these little flecks of metal, we'll have to see over time.
It's also that the micrometer crew is now out. The same. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with taking a checklist to go pick up your car, but the folks who would get the checklist, but they get the 20-page version, and then they would get the micrometer and they'd measure the panel gaps here. Oh, I'm not taking this. It's at 6 microns instead of 7.
Yeah, don't take it. Let the next person on the list who's actually going to enjoy it have it. If you're just going to take it and complain, I'd rather not have you take it.
But then you combine them with the shorts crowd, and then the current, EVs are bad, and the Tesla is evil, and all the other narrative that's going on right now, amplifying itself with the FUD. Yeah. But as an owner, that would be something that's pretty. Whoa, what's going on? This thing is rusting. And then when they explain,
it would certainly be surprising for sure if you didn't know what this actually was. But speaking of owners, Patrick's got the next story about more owners. And,
that's right.
What's this about, Patrick?
This is about all the smart people who don't fall for the FUD. So this comes to us from Inside EVs. It's titled U.S. EV registrations accounted for 7.7% of the car market in 2023. So that is awesome. We are moving on up. EVs are becoming more and more mainstream. So the subtitle here is the latest data reveals a 52% increase in volume compared to 2022. Excellent. So this is just awesome. More people are buying EVs. This says it in...
0.5%. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I was excited when we got to 1%. And the big one is going to be when we cross the chasm. So when you can get into the upper teens, then it's unstoppable at that point, which is awesome. So in 2023, all electric vehicle registrations in the US exceeded 1.1 million for the very first time, far outpacing the growth rate of the overall car market. There's just a couple of other little things I want to throw in here. According to the registration data from S&P Global Mobility, battery electric cars made up 7.7% of the total new light-duty vehicle registrations for 2023. And Tesla, of course, we have to talk about that on this show, was responsible for a massive 642,000 new registrations, up 34% year over year. That's about 56% of all the EV registrations. And if you want to round out the top 5, it was Tesla, Ford, Chevy, Hyundai, and Rivian. And I'm happy to see Rivian, another pure play, in the top 5. That was great. There you go. There's a whole lot more data. If you want it, it's on Inside EVs. Check it out.
And there'll be a link to that below. So yes, that's great news. 7.7% on our way to double digits. And hopefully that will be in 2024. I did understand that there's been some market analysts that have been looking at the EV market to this point, and some of them are forecasting for 2024. They believe we're going to be at over 1.5 to 1.6 million registers in this year. So that would be about a 40-50% increase again. And that will definitely put us in deep into the double digits for percentage. So that's fantastic news. As mentioned, we've been in this a long time.
Oh yeah,
we've been watching this. I remember when, as Patrick said, it was a big deal getting to 1%. Heck, it was a big deal to get to 0.5%.
Yeah,
at the beginning. But this is something that it seems that the time has come. I know media out there is constantly banging on the drums that EV sales are slowing, and that EVs are sitting on car lots longer and longer, and that manufacturers are upset and they're scaling back in some cases their production or their battery purchases or their deals with others to get EVs on the road. And that may be the case. There may be some of that actually going on, but the other side
moved in too far,
right? But the other side of the coin is they're still growing. The market share is still growing, and as Patrick has mentioned, it's actually outpacing the ICE vehicles. It's the fastest growing segment and continues in being that as these years go by. So this is great news. Certainly look forward to what we get next February when we get the numbers for 2024. But I think throughout the year, I think we're going to be seeing some smashed records as quarters go by.
Yeah, I remember the Obama administration had a goal to get 1 million EVs on the road. I don't remember, by 2015 or something, and they just missed it. But here we are doing over 1 million in a single year. So it's happening. And to those automakers that are slowing down their changeover to EVs, the market's not slowing down. It's growing every year at massive percentages. So if you slow your program down, all you're doing is ceding that market to somebody else. Tesla's not going to slow down.
That's the other thing is with Tesla owning over half the market. If somebody else does slow down and stop offering EVs or switch to low-level hybrids, you're right. There's going to be others that are going to take that ball and run with it. They're going to get those deposits, and they are going to be selling those cars. And that's something that I think that the big three should really keep an eye on. Yes, you guys were slow getting started in the EV revolution, but the reason you did that was to make more money on the ICE end as you were getting. As the cars kept selling, Well, guess what? You're going to have to reinvest some of those profits that you've taken in for the last, let's say, 6-7 years, and you're going to have to invest it. Ford has started to do it. They are losing money on every EV they sell, and they're investing some of those profits from ICE sales into their EV architecture in order to keep that up. But that's really what you have to do if you're going to try to walk the tightrope and collect money from both sides. At some point, you're going to have to transition, and Ford is starting to transition, and they're seeing the pain of it now. And we've got others like GM that are they've got a weird plan. From sitting on the outside, it looks weird to me, but they have invested in the actual plants, and they've invested in deals with battery makers, and they have invested in factories. They're just not scaling up quite yet. So we're going to have to wait and see another half year and see what happens with GM with all these battery plants starting to come online as to, okay, now the plant is up and running and the line is scaled. Are you going to actually start pushing the batteries out in mass or not? So,
yeah, they might have to do something like, I don't know, stop paying massive executive bonuses or stock buybacks or dividends and invest in actual products. Crazy as that sounds.
That's nutty.
Yeah, it seems that GM's had a terrible time getting ramped, and Ford has had their dealers just constantly just making it tough for them. On the whole, I know there are good dealers out there, but on the whole, their dealer network has made it really difficult for them to push EVs forward. While of the legacies, Hyundai seems to be eating their lunch.
Mm-hmm.
They just released another new model, and they're doing well.
Right. Hyundai Kia could end up being a significant, they've never been one of the big players. They haven't been at the level of Toyota or Chevy or whatever, but this could move them up.
It could. Next story has something to do with this. And Casey's got it.
One of the Tesla AI engineers was on X and saw people complaining about the wipers. What's new? Because they suck. The auto wipers, deep rain and all that have not been quite what Elon promised us. So for 2 weeks, they're a couple years late. And he said the new improvement should go out soon. And the responses were, I'm not holding my breath. And but allegedly, it's even better than anything we've seen before. And apparently, it's not going to be like an incremental thing. Apparently, they'll be just styled in properly for more and more people. But
this will be their third announcement about an improvement to the auto wipers, and to this point, I saw a number of comments on our Twitter feed, which is at the Tesla Life, if you're not following us there already, where the responses were, "I'll believe it when I see it." So obviously, many feel our pain when it comes to auto wipers. I had an instance this past Thursday, exact same thing, on a highway, had the auto wipe on, and it just could not get dialed in at all. So I ended up turning it off and going to the regular swish swash back and forth, or press the button when I needed it. So it's something that we all see. And the other thing is that people that have come from other brands, some of those cars have it dialed in with their sensor, and it's perfect.
But they actually have a sensor.
Right.
And
right.
They did have a sensor. And
yeah. And they decided, no, we got cameras. We'll just program that in. And it has not been that easy, has it? So
did you see Andrej Karpathy talking about that, where he said, "Oh, now it's my problem," when they pulled out the rain sensors, as if he didn't already have enough to do to get full self-driving working. Now he's got to worry about the rain.
Exactly. He's probably willing to chip in the $3 for every car they make just to put that rain sensor back in to get that off his plate. I'm sure.
He seems to be enjoying his. He stepped down from OpenAI, and he seems to be enjoying his time off, doing his own personal projects. He was explaining something esoteric in code that I didn't quite follow, and he's doing a lot more AI research now that he's got time to actually sit down and do the studies while not having to also do productive work. And we'll see where he goes next. But he can't be
a poll. Anyone that's in the chat room, do you feel the pain of the intermittent wipers? Do you feel an issue? Have you had an issue? Do you still have an issue? Do you believe that Tesla will have fixed it on this next release? It'd be interesting to see what the comments are. Put your comments in the chat area. We would appreciate it.
Yeah, so I just took a drive, and this is rainy season here. Like, what part of Oregon isn't rainy season? But anyway, it's turn on full self-driving, and then you have to keep a hand on the wheel anyway, and so that just kind of keeps me engaged, just occasionally tapping it. And I've found that after I tap it 3 or 4 times, then it figures out, oh, okay, you're just going to keep tapping this, and so it just kind of goes into automatic whether or not it wants to. So that's my little hack is if you just tap, 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 then it tends to just go on its own.
And I'm not going to deny this is the best it's ever been since they removed the sensor, but that's not saying a whole lot.
It's a low bar.
I remember the first day out with the car, and we had taken a trip, and we're on the road, and a rainstorm hit us out of nowhere, and I remember that the wipers went absolutely bananas on me. They were just going back and forth extremely quickly. I couldn't slow them down. The auto was it was completely out of control. You're right, Casey. It has improved since the beginning. But
my car didn't even have auto wipers when I got it.
You still got a little ways to go.
I had to manually, which actually turned out to be better for quite a long time.
Next, let's talk about, this kind of mixes into a story we had already earlier. It appears, and this is not set in stone yet, but it appears the Biden administration, who of course have implemented a number of regulations when it comes to emissions, it looks like they're going to be maybe dialing back the requirements shortly. Biden administration has been prompted by all the different car manufacturers based in the U.S. that due to, as they say, circumstances beyond their control, they believe that the time is you're pushing the emissions reduction too quickly. We are unable to comply because, one, we don't have the vehicles or the batteries in order to sustain those numbers and get the emissions down to the level that you're going to implement. And two, the American public is not buying EVs. And we're going to have a difficult time in order to achieve these numbers for that reason as well. There's not enough people that are buying EVs in order to knock that value down. This is a double-edged sword, and we've been seeing this for an awfully long time. I got to believe that there's a group of automotive car lawyers that just have all these points that they continually cycle through every time an administration is getting close to a tightening of emission standards. And this is what looks like what is happening. And unfortunately, the Biden administration is heading into an election. Mm-hmm. So they've got the UAW with jobs that are saying you can't you can't push automakers into slowing down because that's going to cost jobs. That's going to cost you votes. There's all these things that are working on the external side of things that compromises are probably going to result from. And I, of course, should pass the floor over to Casey and Patrick because, hey, it's your government. So you guys can fight about it and tell me what is really going on here.
They were consulted on this 30 years ago. They got buy-in. They said, okay, they like it was going to be even stronger than it is. And they managed to get it down back 30 years ago. They've had 30 years to prepare. And if you wonder why pickup trucks went from you can had to bend over at the waist to reach down into the pickup truck to get stuff out, to now, if you're 6'3", you still need a step stool to get into the back of the bed to reach. That is because they were exploiting the footprint loophole if they make the truck bigger, it doesn't have to do any better than the truck 30 years ago.
That's right.
And that's why they stopped making passenger cars. And like they play this faux, oh, they've surprised us. Oh, how can we get ready this time? You've had 30 flipping years to get ready. You should be ready by now.
Yeah, it's sad that politics is always compromise. And like you said, Mark, they have they can darken the skies with their lobbyists when they need to.
Yeah.
So I'm really surprised the UAW is opposed to the transition, because during the transition they're going to have to be building batteries and EVs and the ICE cars. So I mean, that's potential for more jobs, especially since they were recently successful at getting jobs at some of the battery manufacturing plants unionized. So they should be looking for more growth there, not less. I
might have to learn how to work the battery casing machine instead of the axle turning machine.
Right. There's still plenty. And that was one thing that the EV incentives had, was this requirement for batteries to be made in the U.S. or in North America, I should say. And so that means more jobs here on the continent. So that was a good move. And so I wonder how much of this is just FUD, that they know that they're not making money on EVs right now. They know they're making money on ICE cars. So all they really are trying to do is, by reducing this requirement, that means they will pay out fewer credits to Tesla and Rivian.
Yeah, but it goes back to what you were saying earlier. Instead of doing the investments that they knew were coming, because you can't tell me that whoever was there 30 years ago didn't tell the new incoming CEO and then the new incoming CEO, that, oh, by the way, you got this deadline coming up. It's got to be like on the wall, like it's a countdown. And so other than stock buybacks and stuff, where they had actually invested in the equipment, that GM had actually realized, oh, this ramp is going harder than we thought. Let's double down on it. It was just where their priorities were, and their priorities were not on compliance. And like I said, that's the reason, again, the SUVs and the pickups are just ginormous, to the point where they how they do the how big is the front of a pickup survey every couple of years. It's now up to 8 little kids can be hidden in the front of a
oh
truck.
Man,
yeah, it wasn't
wow.
6. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, they've been optimizing for these loopholes instead of actually making a great affordable product. And that's just,
why a truck from 1990 got 16 to 18 miles per gallon, and the Dynamo trucks today get 16 to 19 miles per gallon. But if you made the same size truck with the proper crash test stuff, you might be getting 25 to 50 miles per gallon.
Right. Well, the Model T got 25 miles per gallon, so it's over 100 years later, and we still aren't. Gas is just not getting better.
Yeah, and with these building of trucks to try to get into these loopholes where they don't have to change their emissions, it's going to bite them in the butt, because what's happening now is that other countries like China and others are now setting up shop in Mexico and other free trade countries with the United States. What happens when someone else unleashes an EV that's cheaper, smaller, more of a city or regional car, and all of a sudden any of the other big three are not going to be called the big three anymore, because you're going to have people that will switch to those other brands, and you will lose a segment that really you've been holding hostage to buy SUVs for the past number of years. And when an option becomes available and the price is right, you're going to see a bit of an exodus, and that is going to cost them their lunch money for sure.
Yeah, you pointed out that part right there, where they were complaining that nobody wants to buy these. One, we go back to, again, the Ford dealers, where they're making it unappealing to buy the car. And then two, where do they put their advertising dollars? They don't put their advertising dollars on the EVs. They don't put them on not that they make sedans anymore, but they didn't put them on the sedans. And so part of that is also their fault, that nobody wants to buy these.
It was always truck month, every month.
Yeah. F-150, baby.
EVs, they're not buying their EVs.
Right. And we saw this with the Japanese cars when they came to the US. They had great fuel economy, in a time when gas prices spiked, and that was a market that the U.S. car companies were not fulfilling, and so that gave them a foothold, and now they're major players. So we could definitely see the same thing happen with Chinese EV makers. If they start building quality cars that have good range, a good price, they're going to find a market. And if the U.S. companies are not fulfilling it, then all of a sudden we'll have BYD or Geely or Polestar or whoever as a new one of the big dogs.
Exactly. And that's something that they've been toying with now. Well, they're teetering with this. The big three are really in trouble. We can all see it coming. I don't understand why they want to live day to day and block out the future and just pretend that, you know what, we just get to fight an administration every 4 years and fight over lowering emissions and get them to haul back those. Well, guess what? Others are not playing that game, and they're going to be entering your market and stealing your customers. So whether you not want to watch this coming, whether you not want to react, it's going to cost you. So my advice is to bite the bullet now and start to make EVs and make them desirable so you can sell them and get better with every iteration you put out.
Yeah. Have you guys heard of Zone to Win? It's a book by Jeffrey Moore. And he talks about how you have your business that'll make you money this quarter, but if you're not investing for the business that'll make you money 5 or 10 years from now, you aren't going to exist 5 to 10 years from now. And you have to be thinking about that. You have to be investing in it. And if you're not, you're not going to be around. Someone else is, and they'll disrupt you.
Yeah, they're right behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, ready to jump over top of you.
Yeah, and RC brought up a point about partnerships. We saw Honda partner with GM. They picked the wrong dance partner because they believed the BS that was coming out of mostly Mary's mouth. But that doesn't say they can't now repartner with somebody who could actually build EVs like Hyundai or Tesla, or Rivian, or wherever they want, really. And they're probably going to just take it in-house because they've built EVs themselves before.
No, GM's playing a weird game. Not really sure. I believe there's something going on in the background that obviously as a corporation they're not going to tell you as to what's going on. But there has been this issue where they have a buildup. They seem to have a platform they're going to move forward with. They're building factories and lines to supplement and to push that platform forward. And yet the brakes have been thrown on. And they've got all these models that they've introduced, and none of them are flowing out in any volume. That's the issue.
Right. A part of the reason is that they just don't, the muscles that could do actual car engineering are long gone. Tesla learned this the hard way with the Roadster. They were like, oh, we need a hardcore transmission to handle this 2-speed. And there was nobody that could make it because all they did was take the existing transmissions and make little tweaks here and there. They couldn't redesign one from scratch. Nobody had the skill set. And that we've seen that over and over again. And so a lot of these car companies think they have expertise in making cars. Well, okay, they know how to make the cars they know how to make now, and they don't have just let's make a whole new design. Let's go to full body casting. Let's do these other things. And you've seen it if you've watched Sandy Munro teardowns when he compares what the legacy car companies are doing with EVs to Tesla. He's like, okay, none of this is optimized. They're making all kinds of mistakes. They've got extra weight here. They've got extra pipes there. They've got these things aren't integrated. And so, yeah, they just don't have the skill set. They're more about branding and assembly than they are actual engineering, which is why we see the same problem with their software over and over. How many times have we seen cars recalled for software recently? Because they're trying to stretch out and they're just not capable. Sad.
Exactly.
Can't fix it themselves because they bought it from somebody else. So they got to wait for that person.
That's right. Got to wait for them, the outsourcer, to fix it. Yeah. Casey, speaking of outsourcing, we've got a story here that you're about to let us know about of somebody that has decided to take upon themselves and see what kind of waves they can make. What was this about?
So don't know if you got any visuals for this one or not, but there was a new Tesla Cybertruck owner who, the first article I came across described it as attempt boat mode, but he didn't say anything like that. We also learned that that even the for a moment part was probably not accurate when it came to the old float, because this one didn't do any floating. But what we did see was this particular Cybertruck. He put it in WaveMode, and he read the part of the manual where it said it could take up to 10 minutes to be fully ready. And rather than wait for it to say it was ready, he just waited 10 minutes, and then decided to go through some flooded roads in his area to the point where it floods bad enough that they have these little markers next to the road, so you know where the bottom is. So you know, even if you do have like a tractor or a lifted truck, you know what your limits are. And you know, my part of the pole is gone. Let me not try this. So he went through, and it did quite well until the very end. It did complete all of the courses, but at the very end, when they brought it home and let it dry out for a day, the buttons that operate the tailgate and the up and down on the tonneau cover are not functional. And in fact, the rollback down button was functional when he made his video, but then when he went to show us, it was now broken, and he had to use the app for all of that. But all in all, I'd say that was pretty impressive. They got no problems with the drive units or the battery, because they did what they said they would do. And there was a little bit of like the wheel arch liner on the driver's side was flapping, so he just retucked it. It was good to go. It was pretty exciting to watch.
And now it's all rusted and fell apart. Right? Because that's what happens. Or did it burst into flames? I'm not sure. It was one of those two, I'm sure.
Not bursting into flames with WaveMode, but Tesla does tell you after you use this feature, you need to make sure that there's nothing contaminating the radiator as far as like leaves and brush, and that you should do a rinse of the undercarriage, especially if it's salt water. So you might want to go to one of the ever decreasing amount of locations that have the pay-as-you-go wand. Those are my favorite because they've always been Tesla approved. And then just wand out the underneath of your car, underside of the car, and then let it go back to road mode, and you're good to go.
I thought it was really interesting with this little warning. It's telling you that it's going to pressurize the battery casing. And of course, if it's pressurized, that means water's not going to leak into it because it's constantly leaking air out of it, keeping it watertight. Very cool. And then, of course, this little graphic showing how much water is enough or is the limit that you should be driving it. And it appears to be just the very tippy top of the tires.
Yeah, he went beyond that. He went up to like the...
Yeah, that one photo, you could see it coming up over the hood.
But the thing is with the photos is that if this vehicle is static, sitting in a pool of water, but if it was moving, the front is a blade that's pushing the water higher and higher at the front. It's always going to be higher. And of course, as the vehicle moves through, the wave goes a little bit lower on the back end. But it was interesting to see him drive through the different size. I guess they weren't ponds. This was a roadway, but there were several sinkings in the road where water had come in and filled the roadway, and there were different levels of it. The last level, he was plowing enough water that it was actually coming up over the frunk and splashing up onto the windshield a little bit. So that was pretty deep as far as this image goes.
I would have gone slower. He was going pretty briskly.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. He was going fairly quickly through it. But as Casey said, impressive. But I don't know if I'd be doing this kind of stuff, especially if the contact points on your buttons on the vehicle are going to be affected. Like this is something you might use in an emergency situation. You are required to exit. But I certainly would not be looking for waterways to try to traverse with this vehicle.
The other thing I'm curious now, if the buttons were messed up, what about the power outlets in the bed?
Oh, good question.
He didn't mention them at all.
He did not plug them in, that's for sure.
Is the vault watertight?
It was. It was watertight, and so was the frunk. He mentioned those two things.
Okay.
And then the trunk, but the vaults isn't built to be watertight. It's kind of like when you rent a U-Haul, Mr. U-Haul over here. I need to go get another. They warn you when you rent the vans that they're not watertight, and you should make sure that whatever you put in them, if you're traveling through a significant amount of weather, that you should be using waterproof tubs instead of cardboard boxes. And it's a similar warning on the main section of the vault in the manual, but it's not.
Yeah, this is just I don't know, stupid pranks for clicks on social media. It's kind of lame. I see. If it was an emergency and you had to evacuate and your life depended on it, okay, sure, go for it. But just for this to record it, I don't know. It seems.
Well, I'm glad they're wrecking their vehicles and not mine. But like, if they want to do this for clicks, that's fine. Because it was interesting to watch. But you know, again, I think most people's common sense would come into play when they start to ease into a large body of water and say, you know what? I don't think I should be doing this with my vehicle. I should, back out the same way I came in. It's something that most with some common sense would head the other direction. But it is interesting to watch. I'll give it that. I will say
it's 5 steps up from Plaid guy who put the Plaid in the pool.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
And then complained to Tesla that he had electrical gremlins.
Because Plaid guy wasn't going to be able to reverse out of that pool. He was done.
And then because he had water in the brake lines because it was swimming.
Because the car was completely submerged. Maybe. Yeah, that might be a problem. Exactly.
I'm glad he wasn't injured. I mean, wasn't. I don't even want to say majorly. I'm glad he survived with his life. But that's the hard way to learn these lessons.
That's right. Another update from Tesla on navigation has happened or is about to happen recently. They're starting to add some traffic control to the maps. So we had seen previously that they added the ability to show stop lights as well as speed traps that are, camera that are actually affixed to the ground that monitor school zones or other things. Well, now they're starting to roll in some road closures and construction that has been mapped as well. So it seems that they're slowly taking little bites out of ways as they move along and making the navigation a little bit more real time to allow you to understand what type of speeds you're going to be going, as well as times you're going to be actually recording on your route. So again, this is great. I'd like to see this. I wonder where the information is actually coming from. Is this Google supplying it? Because of course it is a Google map, or is Tesla actually collecting some information from another source and putting it over top of the map in the navigation package? I'm not sure which it is, because I know Google has some of these abilities as well when it comes to construction and road closures. So
it's a mixture. Some of the hackers have found that the FSD computers, and I guess the hardware 2.5 computer as well, are able to categorize stuff they see, like object on road or police or speed cameras, and they're able to submit it to the fleet. And one of the categories that they've seen, I don't know if it is in this particular map update, one of the categories they saw was speed cams. It doesn't audibly announce it, which would be awesome, but it'll show you speed cam. Slow down.
Yeah. So we will see. I'm sure that we're going to see other little tweaks that will start to come along, and I don't even doubt that we'll have maybe the speed traps being able to be added by users. That was a Waze thing that was only on Waze, but I can definitely see that these things are starting to creep into the navigation, and we'll probably see more.
So, do you have to have premium connectivity to be able to see these?
That's a good question, because I do have premium connectivity, and I think the two of you do as well. So
I do in the 3, but not the Y.
Oh, okay.
Well, this would be attached to the live traffic visualization. So if you have the overlay of colors of the traffic, that's what it's using to do that. But again, if you have an AP 2.5 or higher computer and it sees the policeman, it's going to still use whatever connection they're not letting you use and send that back to the mothership for the people who are paying them $10 a month or grandfathered in because their cars are old as hell.
Yeah. Very good, very good. So we will see. I believe that more will come, and I'm sure that we will see a few more enhancements as time goes along.
Yeah, so the hacker was questioned if we would get a button to report stuff in like Waze, and they didn't think that the answer would be yes, because the best part is no part, the best button is no button, blah blah blah. This computer is better than we are, and I'd say it's more consistent than we are, whether it's better or not. So if it says it's a speed trap or a pothole or whatever, then you'll know. Last time it said there was one, it was this quality of pothole, or there were 8 cops.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Next, Casey's got a little story about what's happening in Switzerland.
Yeah. Sweden, though, right?
I'm sorry, Sweden. My mistake.
Okay. Our friends over at IF Metal, and by friends, I am not...
There are no friends of ours.
of the way I would actually intend to use that word. Their sympathy strikes have expanded yet again. Their sympathy for the 17 people who are on strike that they can only find about 13 or so actually off of work. But in solidarity with these folks, they've decided that the union that controls the connecting of supercharger sites, repair of the supercharger stations, and commissioning of the supercharger stations will no longer do their jobs. And this is so in theory, in a couple months, this will be a pain point for Tesla. But it's been pointed out that Tesla doesn't actually make a profit center out of the supercharger network, and so the 36 sites that were going to be installed this year are now up in the air, and I'm assuming that means that whatever you're going to have 36 sites somewhere else in Europe, and they're going to miss out on the opportunity for the labor and the taxes and recently another one of the sympathy strike situations happened here, where the collision repair centers, a couple of them make their bread and butter off of Tesla. And one of the shops, he was reported in the news, he was crying that his grandfather signed him up for this situation. And again, their biggest customers are Tesla customers, so they didn't want to do this, but because of the agreement they were in, the overarching union called their favor, and so their people went on strike. And well, one went out of business, and a couple other people lost their jobs. About 20 people lost their jobs, assuming that they're not at the place that went out of business. And the way that it was worded, the announcement that I believe it's called SECO, this particular group of electricians and such that are not going to be doing their jobs, they I don't know if they just repeated the press release that was handed to them, or if they actually believe what they said, but they think that they're helping the Tesla people get better pay because the fact that they're not in the union, that Tesla is taking advantage of them and paying them less than they get paid. But when the reporters and Tesla Club people went to talk to the actual workers, they found they're getting paid more than the union prescribes that they should get paid. So this is definitely a case where you'll never know the true story because everybody is biased on one side or the other. So you're going to have the union side that at one point said there were 300 people on strike, when it's really 300 people could be on strike. And Tesla said nobody's on strike, when it was at least 13. So the truth is going to be somewhere in the middle. And this has just been frustrating to watch because it's not like we saw with Ford and GM, where the people who were affected were actually out with the picket lines. It's like, oh, okay, well, they need better situation, or they want better situation. I can respect that. Here you've got the people inside doing their jobs, minding their business, and then you've got these people saying, oh, you're being abused. And they're like, no, we're not. And they're like, yes. This has just been about 4 months of just like, what am I looking at?
And I would say that the only way out of this is to go to the bureaucrats. everyone that owns a Tesla is being affected by this in any way, shape, or form?
Europe, all brands are affected by this. The customers, EV drivers.
They should all combine themselves into a voting block, and they should all write their politicians, and they should all point out that this is crazy for the following reasons, and start to get their voices heard in mass. Again, we've always said this on this show. If you haven't joined your local EV association, you should do so, just for the fact to affect policy. Politicians do not listen to one or two people, but they do listen to groups of 10 or 100. Those groups get their message through because they can organize and they can go after the issues and let people know in mass and actually get people to stand up and listen. Whereas if you're just silent or just one person complains, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, so definitely do that. But I want to note that this type of strike was legal in England until right about the Thatcher time. And now you can still strike, but it's more like the US where you can only strike if you're affected. And so what I think the politicians might do here is narrow the focus on this, because even the folks at the body shops, they were like, well, we're supporting them, but they don't want our support, and I've lost my job because why? And Paul pointed out that how can Elon argue about pay? I don't think he is, because when you looked at Giga Texas, Giga Nevada, and I'm surely here, they all got raises this year, and they were above market amounts for what people who were getting raises got for raises. So that's another point that I did want to bring up, though, is that Elon told management there, you are not to negotiate. So I imagine that if somebody even looked like they were taking the paper, the heads would roll coming down from the top.
Yeah, this doesn't seem to be about worker pay or worker compensation. It seems to be more about the union wanting to maintain control.
Yeah, and then folks have been talking. They're like, well, why Tesla? Like, if all this stuff they say is true, why Tesla and not somebody who actually the statements would be true? And they might have been thinking that they'd get an easy win, Tesla would roll over, and instead they've just landed themselves in with a fight that they weren't expecting, and against an immovable object. So at this point, we've got the president of the overarching union. She's no longer running for re-election or keeping her continuation of contract. Their lawyer has been fired, and then now general morale is low at the start of this latest sympathy action. They've been reported as saying, well, why are we helping them if they don't want our help? Why are we putting up for this?
Yeah.
Versus you got a shop full of people who are actually, hey, we need safety gear, we need more money, and we need health insurance. Health insurance is a problem in the Nordic countries, I know, but for example, and that would be something you could get behind and support easily.
Yep.
Like, those people need food on the plates, and here it's like there's nobody outside. What are we doing?
Yeah. Not sure where this is going to end, but obviously it's not going to end anytime soon. It'll be interesting to see how this progresses. Yeah, don't know where it's going to end up. It's we got two groups that believe that they cannot lose in
right.
And
stubborner.
Yeah, there's not going to be any compromise here in the near future. So
yeah, and they're both Tesla's got a lot of cash they're sitting on, and then the union's sitting on at least $1 trillion. So
right, we've seen the same thing with the dealerships in the U.S. The dealership thought, oh, we can make Tesla delivered through dealerships, and we'll just make sure that we have the laws in place so that they can't sell in our state, and then they have to do it. No, they don't.
Yeah, and then you find groups that find places like Mohegan Sun and decide to set up on a federal Indian reserve that has a mall, and you've gotten around it. So
it's these groups trying to bully Tesla, and then if you've read the Walter Isaacson book about Musk, that he was bullied as a kid, and so he has an attitude when someone tries to bully him, and he's going to take the the hard road every time. I've not, yeah.
Not give
it's
up.
Interesting. Yeah. I never really connected how this behavior of Tesla's is very much comes from Musk's childhood.
Right.
Yeah. Well, with that, I think we will wrap it up tonight. If you haven't already, please give us that thumbs up in the video. That really helps us out. It doesn't cost you anything and helps a small channel like us. Would really appreciate that. Press that subscribe if you haven't already. Press the bell, and you will be able to be notified every time that we put up a new video. And we have been putting out more. So please do that and help us out. Let's go with Casey. Any shout-outs this evening, sir?
So catch me over at youtube.com at Casey Green. That's KCEYGREEN. And I've revamped. My daughter moved it. I revamped that poster that you used to see of all the cars looking the same. I also found out the original artist that inspired me, and so I gave him a shout out over on my X feed at GCustom. Take a look. I'm curious what you think of it. So it shows. I said. Breaking out of a century of sameness, essentially, with the Cybertruck. And so up top is a. I titled it 100 plus years old, but it was a Model T. And then down the other corner is a Cybertruck. And in fact, I'm updating it just a little bit more because people were complaining about 2 missing pickup trucks. So I'll put them in.
Got to give the people what they want.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And if you look real close, there's an Easter egg of Casey somewhere in the poster. So
it's not really hidden.
Kind of, if you don't look too closely. But
true.
Patrick, any shout outs from you this evening?
Yes, as always, I'm with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. You can find us at oeva.org. And I blog occasionally at carswithcords.net. Check it out, where I blog about my future free from fossil fuels.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Again, press that like, press that thumbs up. Really appreciate it. And have yourselves a great week. We will catch you next time.
Stay positive. Test negative.
Thank you, Moon.